Junid, welcome to the Made Leader podcast. I'm so glad to have you on today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Jen.
Well, I want to start with just a basic question. What does leadership mean to you?
Wow, that's definitely a great question. Well, I would say it's a little bit of a multitude of things. So it's definitely about being solution oriented. I don't think that leaders are expected to know everything or have all the answers, but they have the skill set to help get the answers, right? Whether it's bringing individuals together from all different walks of life or experience and getting them to collaborate, getting them to brainstorm. It can include prioritizing projects or duties just to ensure that we get to the finish line. And it can really be a part of just making sure that you also have the organizational skills, the prioritization, leading and being diplomatic essentially, while still having that grit to get things done, right? Because grit is still required alongside with that skill set. So, again, not something that you have to know. It doesn't mean you have to know everything, but definitely it means that you have the right different skill set to help push a project through and get individuals to really work together cohesively and collaboratively.
Yeah, I like what you said, Junid, about not having all the answers, because I think there's this myth that leaders need to know. And I think sometimes employees expect you to know, right? So you walk that fine line between, hey, I know a lot of things, but I don't know everything. And so how do
Yeah.
you facilitate that conversation and that collaboration? I'm glad that you mentioned that in your leadership definition. Um,
Yes.
Thinking of your history, you've been in hospitality for a while. And I think hospitality is just it's a unique animal, if you will.
Oh,
And
yeah.
is being a leader in hospitality, you've been through COVID, so you've been through all the things. Is that different than anywhere else? Do you think there's different principles that apply, or do you think it's really the same across the board?
Yes, I mean, I would say absolutely. So you get a crash course in leadership, HR, any position that you're in when you're in hospitality. I mean, just in 1 year time span, the experiences that you will get to be a part of, whether positive, negative, or growth experiences, whether it's through guests or team members or leaders, it's impressive. I mean, I think back to just knowing HR and practicing HR outside of the hospitality sector versus being back into hospitality, I would say it kind of becomes a little addicting, right? Because every day it's different, every day is unique. There are different scenarios, and no two scenarios are the same. Versus in some of the other industries, it's a little bit more calm. That you definitely have you have a pace that you can really kind of just merge into. But in hospitality, I mean, you really have to be able to have that ability to multitask. Some things are a fire and require you to really just be able to respond and react. Not every time you'll have the opportunity, as I like to say, to marinate on it. A lot of times you'll have to make decisions on the fly. And so you really just become the ability to think faster than light becomes your top priority and one of your best skill set when you're in hospitality. And that's, again, whether you're in operations, HR, in a supportive role, any of those, just your priorities can change between morning and afternoon.
Yeah, and I
It's
guess it's
definitely an
something that
interesting industry to be in.
yeah, I mean, I guess it's something that you love, right? Like, is it like, 'cause to me, I'm thinking about that and it feels a little exhausting to me. I'd be like, yeah, I'd need to go home and be like, all right, just need a break from everyone. But is that something that lights you up? And is that something that you enjoy, that fast pace, always kind of trying to figure new things out?
Yes, I do. And I would say you have to be a little, I don't want to say crazy, but you definitely have to be slightly motivated to be in hospitality. Again, because of how quickly it moves, you also, though, have to be able to balance. If you don't find your right balance and rhythm, it's definitely quite easy to get burnt out or even to just lose your passion over it. You have to love what you do and show up every day for work, but also give yourself that time to be able to recoup. Definitely one of the pieces that's important, probably in any career, is just about making sure you give that yourself that ability to recalibrate because you're only your best and can bring your best to others when you're re-energized. If you're just go, 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 I mean, essentially you're going to just crash and burn. And ultimately, that's not the goal. At that point in time, it no longer becomes fun.
Right. Well, Junid, how do you recharge? How do you relax like in this so you don't burn out?
Yes. So for me, it's definitely about finding always projects that I enjoy at work. And then when I'm not at work, it's getting away. Sometimes I just need the silence. So when I think of my day, and probably for most individuals in any leadership role, there's always someone that needs something from you. And there's always someone behind that someone who also is waiting in line to get to you. And so it's for me, it's all about going out to the mountains and just being one with nature, being able to breathe some fresh air and having those moments of silence. It's interesting because a lot of people think I'm an extrovert, but I'm really an introvert that has just learned a little bit about how to be an extrovert. And so recharging is definitely part of my process in every day and every week priorities. Because again, I know that when I'm recharged, I can then give my best. And so getting away, being in a moment of silence with nature, going on a hike, it really helps me to just recalibrate, be able to have that, I would say, fresh air to begin to think through things creatively as well.
Yes, and we're about to hit summer here in Vegas, and Mount Charleston is a reprieve from the oppressive heat here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mount Charleston is one of my favorite locations to go to. And certainly you can't miss out anytime you go to California and just getting that fresh breeze out there.
Yes, it is nice. Well, Janet, are there any recent moments in the past month or two, or something that you remember that has filled your bucket recently in your role?
Yes. I would think through just even as recent as last week, right? So I always say, I love what I do, but certainly I love my job and what I do even more when I have leaders that share that same passion and are motivated. And actually, recently at our property, our GM and AGM, they came up with this initiative, which I thought was the cutest, most simplest thing. But hearing the stories behind it definitely filled me with joy. So they decided to just do a little ice cream social, and they actually purchased these little, I would say, almost containers, almost like little ice cream containers that they went around the resort and different administrative offices, and they just gave out ice cream. Now, the kicker is it's not the fact that they did that, it's the stories behind it. So, as I asked them, how did it go? And I'm talking to the employees, the team members were simply stating, oh, yeah, I was wondering if I missed a holiday. Was it Mother's Day? Was it already Memorial Day? What's going on? And when the GM and AGM got to them, it was just, no, we're just doing this just because we appreciate you and we want you to stay refreshed. And when I think of, just such a small action of giving out, whether it's ice creams or Gatorades or something refreshing when it's getting hot out, without there being a reason behind it other than we simply want to show appreciation and we are going to take an hour of our day, of our week to do this, it goes such a long way. And especially at a time in our property where we're going through a huge remodel, it impresses me to have leaders that still take the time to give back and show again that sense of care and that sense of we appreciate you. And usually, in other locations, I'm having to say, hey guys, what are you doing this month? Or what have you done recently to show appreciation? The fact that it's just coming up organically, it just shows me and it secures the fact that we're headed in the right direction and that we have the right leadership at the top.
Yeah, I love that, Juna. Thanks for sharing. Not only did they recognize it, right? Because just reading a recognition research, right? So people like to be recognized, positive feedback, all that stuff, and it really cuts disengagement by
Yes.
half, is what I was reading, and burnout in half. And the fact that they recognized I'm not sure what the policies are around. I'm assuming they're getting reimbursed for that. But thinking I'm going to go, or maybe there's autonomy they're given. You have a budget, you can use it for what you want. And part of that is you can recognize your employees, right?
Yes.
And going and doing that when it's not even a special holiday. Because I think leaders can get tripped up in
Yes.
that. They don't even have to go buy them ice cream. but great, maybe you do, right? And then organizations giving leaders that go ahead, right? It doesn't have to come out of your own pocket. And you're, you have that ability to do that for your people.
Yes, you hit it on the nail, Jen, when you said autonomy. The fact that we, again, when I think of the organization and their leadership gives them that freedom to be creative and not even feel like they need to ask permission. Because I remember I heard about this when it was happening, about probably the day prior. Um, but there's this autonomy and there's this trust from their senior leadership. You've got a budget, you do with it what you may. You put together the activities that you're interested in doing, and then they support it. And as a matter of fact, I'm hearing already that some of the executives want to get signed up to participate in this event. And I was like, I love where we're headed with this. This is great momentum. And it probably all stemmed from, hey, it's hot outside. What should we do? Maybe we should give out ice cream, but it's going above and beyond and making it creative. And that's actually, I mean, from what I hear, they're currently working on basically making their carts a little bit more creative and inspirational. So it'll be fun because I can see them just beginning to have fun with this at work. And again, that's what makes it even more amazing. It's fun for them. They actually enjoy doing this. And for the team members, I mean, they feel that passion come through and they feel that appreciation come through organically. No one had to nudge them and tell them what to do. It simply came from them. And that's some of the best way when it comes organic. That is when you know you've created the right culture.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. As I was about to say, it's like it wasn't an HR-driven initiative. Hey, you
Mhm.
need to go give recognition, right? It was an employee recognition day that always falls on HR. It was driven, and it really goes to what I was just thinking of when you're talking about the cart, the ice cream cart. It goes to your philosophy of yes and, right? Yes, we gave them ice cream, and let's make the cart even better next time,
Yes,
right? Like it goes with that philosophy. I love it. It's just that excitement around it. I want to hear
agreed.
what happens. Now, I know there's challenges because if you're a leader in a fast growing organization, there's going to be challenges. What kind of still challenges you, trips you up, or kind of gets in your way with leading people?
Yes. Well, with leading people and in general supporting them, I would say that there's a few things off the top of my head. I would definitely think through. I always say I can't teach common sense. So you have to want to figure things out and have that grit to go and get it. The other portion is I can't teach you to care. You have to want to care, especially when you're leading others, right? I can't teach you to be genuine. I can guide you through that, but you have to enjoy really what you're doing in order for us to be able to even support you the right way. And so that I would say still trips me up sometimes when I find somebody who's just looking for who to blame or is pessimistic or comes in with negativity. It doesn't mean, right? And I want to clarify, right? Being a good leader doesn't necessarily mean you have to come in and every day is going to be filled with joy.
Right.
It means that you care enough to know that your quality of work is important. Again, that you need to recharge in order to give your best. And that you're essentially going to be diplomatic. When you go out there to your team, you're putting your best really face on, your best leadership skills on. And you're, again, not going to know all the answers, but you're open to receiving feedback from your team, right, or other teams as well. And really listening in order to be solution driven. So I think when you don't have that care factor, that still challenges me. And so at that point in time, I always sit down and say, guys, so tell me, why are you in this role realistically, right? Or what changed? At what point in time was this no longer the right role for you? And once we start to have those honest conversations, because part of it is that's what we're here to do, right? It's really to help you become a better leader. Once they find that they can have that safe conversation, because a lot of times it's what it boils down to, it's not them, right? Sometimes when someone's not performing their best, it's they're having other pressures or they're having challenges or they're ready just to give up because at this point in time, they feel like they've hit a wall. And so it's really bringing that joy back in them and really trying to understand. But again, you have to want to do that. I can't do it for you. I will absolutely support and try to provide all the tools and resources and try to open those doors and guide you through some of those difficult conversations because some of it may involve having to have difficult conversations with their leaders, but you have to want it. And so that's still my challenge sometimes. It's that portion, or when their senior leadership perhaps may not be receptive to that. And so it's really just helping them navigate. But I find no challenge is too big. And any challenge I take it on with, we're going to make this happen.
That's tough for
An
me as well.
optimistic approach, Jen. That's all I
What's that?
can do. I try to have an optimistic approach to it.
Yeah, I call myself a realistic optimist because
Yes.
I'm no Pollyanna. But yeah, it's tough for me too when people, I was talking to someone yesterday and I was like, what do you like about your job? That conversation lasted about 20 seconds before getting into all the complaints. And then
Yes.
you do kind of have to ask yourself or coach the person, like, can you be happy in this role? What would make you
Yes.
satisfied in this role? So I hear you on that. Sounds like you do a good job tempering
I
your
try.
coaching them. So thinking of your leadership experience as a whole, was there any kind of moment or moments in your earlier leadership career that helped shape the leader you are today?
Yes, there were quite a few. I would say that one of, I'll mention two, well, maybe three, but we'll try to keep it short. So definitely, I think just being in hospitality and being a part of opening properties, huge impact, personally and professionally. Just really being able to feel like you're a part of something bigger and seeing the results of those projects, huge. I mean, it really just it overwhelms you, but it also really just allows you to be your best and to thrive. And so I think back to those moments still shaped today because I was able to overcome and be a part of all that. Today it almost feels like anything that happens, we're fine. We got
You got
this.
it.
But it really feels that way. So that I will say definitely contributed. Excuse me. I think one of the other moments too would be the mentors I've had. So I think of the first time that I was promoted from into a supervisor level role. I remember having my director just coach me and really invest in me, from a simple thing to, can you go ahead and send me a sample of that email before you send it out, and providing me feedback on how to best write it. Right. That's when I learned about email etiquette, really. Right. Prior to that, I was just writing emails, and sure, they were professional, but there is a different sense of, I would say, importance that is given depending on who it's coming from and the supervisory level. And again, how you even open up an email, the tone, all of those pieces. So I think back to that leader who took the time to really invest in helping me make that transition between a line level associate to now a supervisor.
And that's
I then,
amazing. Just let me pause right there before you get to the third
yes,
one. But I think that's amazing because how many leaders who are new to, this is my soapbox, right? Getting
yes,
new into leadership don't get that mentorship and that guidance. And I love that your director took really just mentored you in that. And that's such a beautiful thing. I wish there was more of that. But
it
go on
is.
to number three.
No, and well, and before I get to the third, I'll tell you, I never forget, in the back of my head today still lies one of our executive chefs that I worked with. Great, I mean, brilliant operator. And I remember he used to say, Sanchez, get over here. And I was just like, oh boy, I knew something happened then. And he gave it to me straight. And I appreciated that as well. He told me, listen, you're filled with knowledge, but you come across as a jerk. And I remember
Mhm.
thinking, and I mean, I'm using jerk, but he used not so other nice words.
A
But we
little more
also have that
colorful, huh?
trust. We also have that trust. And I never forget his words. He told me two things. He said, fluff it up, right? And he told me it's all in the delivery.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me always, because you can always deliver any message, but it's how you deliver it, your demeanor, your attitude when you deliver it, your body language. I mean, he taught me some of the best things out of the operations, especially because he was an operator. And so receiving that feedback from an operator who genuinely wanted me to also be successful. And he knew that he respected me enough and knew that I had the knowledge. I just needed help in getting his team to buy into it and giving me the tools to, basically achieve that. Huge, huge.
Yeah.
So
I
again,
love
the
that.
mentors
Have that
along my
trust.
journey have been amazing.
Yeah, I love that you had that trust that he could say that directly to you, and like there's no
Yes.
fluff. Like he just tell me what I need to know, and then you knew what you needed to improve upon. But that trust had to be there. I love it.
Yes. Yes. And I would say the last thing that really shaped my career was I recalled there was a time where and I actually marinated on this probably for a couple of years, maybe longer than I'd like to admit. I had a promotional opportunity and I missed out on it. And I remember thinking back to that promotional opportunity so many times throughout my career. And fast forward to, I mean, today, several years now, I can definitely say that I was not prepared. I had the
Mm.
knowledge, I did have the experience. I did not have the professional maturity. I did not have the emotional intelligence, and I would have failed. I honestly would have failed. I probably could have risen to the occasion, but it wouldn't have been as I don't know that I would have been as influential or as successful as I can be today. And
Yeah.
so being able to recognize that was huge as well and a huge part of my journey.
How did you handle that? Because did you think, because you just said you weren't very emotionally intelligent, you weren't really there yet. Were you kind of pissed after you didn't get it, or did you?
Absolutely. I mean, just like anyone, I think we all would
Right.
be. But I will say I wasn't pissed because pissed is a strong word for me, but I was disappointed. I will say that I go more internal. So I began to question whether or not I was headed down the right path, what I could have done differently. Almost that internal unappreciation for and recognition for what I had actually done. And again, I would say that being surrounded by great leaders, I did have a great leader that came back and said, "Listen, this doesn't have to do with your skill set, and that doesn't mean that the opportunity will not be there in the future. Let's talk about the whys." And I will say that after, spending probably 48, 72 hours, maybe a little longer than that, not as happy, eventually I started to understand a little bit of the why. And I think that's only been even more apparent to me as the years have gone by, as I've had new experiences in my career. Um, and just in general, again, I think of being a part of different organizations. Sometimes you do need that additional growth and expansion. I always think back to my, I would say the main employer where we opened several properties. I mean, I still go back to a lot of the things that I learned in that organization still to today in my career. Because really, that is where I learned, I would say, the bulk of my experiences and my knowledge.
Mhm. Yeah, it always takes some time to get
It
over
does.
something that you didn't get. It's an ego thing. We all have it. To say
Yeah.
that, no, you don't have an ego is ridiculous. But I love that you look internally because some people would say, oh, it's not fair, the organization, blah, blah, blah. But really, there's always something you can learn from those missteps or the things you didn't get. And I think that just
Yes.
says a lot to say, okay, what can I do differently? What do I need to do to continue my career trajectory that's in my control? And I think too many people get caught in the feelings and the hurt, and then they just want to leave. Um, so
And they
thanks
are
for sharing that.
valid. They are
Yes.
valid, and it's okay. Just don't stay in that place. And I tell that to my girls as well. It's okay to feel sad as long as you don't stay there too long. You still
Yeah.
need to be able to bounce back. That happens professionally as well. That happens in general in life. Don't stay stagnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So, you've seen leaders rise and fall in leadership, right? You have that HR view, and you've probably seen some patterns that aren't as clear to other people, right? What behaviors have you noticed that separates these middle managers from continuing on that trajectory versus the ones that do maybe stay stagnant in an
Yep.
organization?
So that's a great transition because it definitely is your inability to see the bigger picture. And sometimes, again, you're going to stay in that scenario, marinate in it, especially if you feel that something's unfair or you were wronged in some sort of way, or if you feel like you're not able to facilitate the change that you're wanting to see happen. So really it's about the difference between those that don't thrive and those that do. It's not staying stuck, right? So recharge, recalibrate, take a new approach, get creative, involve others. That's really what it boils down to. Especially in any leadership role, you're an influencer. So sometimes
Mhm.
what you need is you need other influencers. So you want to be able to identify those around you that can help you and help push certain key points forward, especially if they're going to be positively impactful for the organization and the team members. I think the biggest thing is, as you mentioned, Jen, it's really looking at every situation and understanding what can I learn from this? What am I learning? Because out of every difficult situation, there's something that you can still learn. And I think as long as you're open to that and you're open to being taught, at the end of the day, you have to be comfortable that you can't control everything. So let's take those small wins, one baby step at a time. And as long as you can continue to see small change and movements, great. And I always think through, especially in my career, growing and going through it, I remember just thinking through, when I get to a certain place, there's certain things that I'm going to do differently, or I'm going to change that. And now being in a role such as the one that I'm in, I realize also that not everything can be done all at once. And again, it's you have to be able to influence other individuals and obtain that support in order to drive change. So don't work in a silo, work in a group, continue to collaborate. And those are just going to be continued experiences that shape you. As long as you're open to it, you will definitely be able to grow. And then there's, I would say, those other scenarios where I say marinate on it. That is one of my favorite words. And I tell my team and my operators all the time. It's just like, not everything needs to be answered immediately.
Mhm.
Marinate on it, especially when you're not at your highest point. Just take some time, come back to it, whether it's the next day or 2 days later if you need to. That's sometimes the best thing to do in any situation, especially if it's stressful or it's a little bit more complex than needed. Just marinate on it, give yourself really that time to be able to breathe and think through it clearly and clear headed, most importantly.
Yeah, without the emotion weighing it down.
Yes.
And I like that you said that because you work in hospitality. It's fast paced. There's high growth, and it's easy to get in that mindset. I just need to make a decision fast. So I like that you
Mhm.
encourage people just to take a breath. It doesn't need to
Yes.
all be solved today. And I think, my husband and I were just talking about this. It's like we sometimes him and I put our own stress on ourselves, right? We're like, we need to get this out.
Yes.
You're like, why? Why am I putting these
What's the
false
rush?
deadlines on myself, right? What's the rush?
Yes.
And the other thing I was thinking about when you were talking is like, have you heard of the hero's journey? Like,
Yes.
so we usually like watching movies where there's a main character and they fall in some way and then they rise back up. I
Yeah.
always think of that as like we all, if you can kind of take on that mindset that we're all going to fall, and how do you kind of pull yourself out of that? Because everyone wants to
Yes.
see you succeed, and you want to see yourself succeed. And organizations, like if you can be resilient like that, to say,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't get that. Let me figure out how I can contribute to the organization in a different way. That's going to, I mean, people are going to see that.
Yes, correct. You can control how certain things will fall into place. You can control how you react at the end of the day. And you can help guide how others react as well. That's
Mm.
huge. So, to your point, Jen, absolutely.
Yeah.
Take
And
that
leaders,
moment and just breathe.
yeah. And leaders have that impact emotionally on their people, right? So if you're going to be all in a tizzy making fast decisions that don't need to be made, then it trickles down, right? That
Yes.
emotional contagion that we all know about. Um, So you mentioned your team. And sometimes I like to get a little tactical on this and I ask leaders, like, what does that look like for you? How do you interact with how large is your team? How do you interact with them? Do you have things that are standing? But how do you manage? I asked you like 18 questions in this one. So how do you manage making sure you have that connection with your team despite being really busy?
Yes. So, I have a team of about 8, but then I think of all my operators, and in my mind, they're all my teams. So, it's finding time for all of them as well. Um, I think it boils down to some of the core that we talked about. It's just being genuine. I genuinely care about my team, right? They're not just a person that I want to come in and be robotic. And I express this to them. When I hire, I always say, listen, anyone can do HR. But if you're just filled with processing documents and making decisions, if you're not really getting to the core of being solution driven, creative thinking, caring about seeing others grow, generally finding and resolving problems and being solution driven, then we're not the right place for you. And so I am transparent from the beginning, but I genuinely care about my team. And so I do generally come in every day and I don't just do my rounds to say hello. I care. How are you today? What's going on? What's happening? Tell me about not only professionally, but personally. And so I remember little nuggets, I like to call it, of them that are personally impactful, because if it's happening to you personally, it's probably affecting you at work, or
Mhm.
you're thinking through it, or your mind's going to be on it. But if we have an opportunity to discuss something, or perhaps I can just follow up and even ask, how is your child doing if they were sick? That goes a long way. The genuinely caring goes a long way. I think beyond that, we have our standing one-on-ones that I do biweekly with them. And then every other Friday, when we're not on our one-on-ones, we have a team meeting where they each get to talk about their projects, what were their wins, what are some of the challenges that they're facing, because sometimes you just need a safe space to vent,
Yeah.
to be able to just feel that you can be open and to talk to other individuals who are likely experiencing the same thing you are. We have one team member that's in a different state. And so definitely keeping her connected is important. So that biweekly meeting she looks forward to, just catching up. And we try to open up typically with a little, just I would say icebreaker, but it's not always an icebreaker. Sometimes it's just, hey guys, it's a long weekend. What are we doing? Where are you going? What's happening?
Yeah.
And so, or just catching up on, again, some of their family things, wins that are happening, especially for those that have children graduating. And I think vice versa. What I love is it creates this environment where my team will ask me about myself as well, and my children, and how did the choir concert go, and how did it go in soccer. And so it just becomes really that second family. Now, I don't say or encourage that everyone needs to be as personable. Again, I think if that's in your personality, great, don't force it. I will say that I wasn't always that way. I was not always that way. And there were actually many years in my career where I was leading based on what I was taught or how I thought I should be. And
Mhm.
so I wasn't as open or transparent, and I was never comfortable talking or sharing about myself. And I realized that I created this wall with my teams as a result of that. And so they never truly felt if they could really trust me. They had the support they needed, but from a personal standpoint, they never felt really as secure as I would say the team that I manage today does now. And they talk about this all the time, and how they actually have this running list on my whiteboard that's kind of funny. It's the jujuisms, basically, any phrases that I constantly say. And so they've got things on my, they're comfortable enough to write things on my board, such as, oh, put it in the chat, or let's connect, like some of my common phrases. And it's nice to have that very friendly banter with the team, because there is that genuine, I would say, connection there. And I'd like to also try to support them in their endeavors. I try to really understand what their goals are, what they're looking to do, what experiences can I give them, what they're looking to get involved in. My goal is to prepare them to someday grow into a larger, bigger role if that's what they choose. And in other cases, some are just happy where they are because they need that balance, right, for their personal
Mhm.
situation for the time being. But it doesn't mean that that interest isn't there in the future. So it's
Yeah,
just about being genuine.
I like what you said about just it goes both ways, right? You need to share, they share, you ask them about them. They also ask you about you. Because
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that leaders are people too.
We're just people. We're
Just
just
people
people.
who want to be known and known for who they are as well. So it's like I always tell employees, like, just go ask your people, ask your leader how they're doing. Like that
Yeah.
alone will be helpful. But I like that
Yes.
sometimes the leader has to start it, right? To share or to ask questions and then reciprocate. So I love that you do that. Now,
Yes. Can I
if
add one more thing to that, Jen?
absolutely.
And I would say, for those of you that have a leader that maybe is not as bubbly, because you'll run into that as well,
Mhm.
you be you. And what I mean by that is there's certain leaders that I know they're just not that friendly face. Doesn't mean that they're bad people. They're just not animated. And so anytime I have an opportunity to genuinely thank them, don't just throw it out, but to genuinely thank them for their support, for their insight. I've seen just mountains get moved with that little thank you. Because at times, what I found is that, again, just like me, probably back in those years where I just didn't feel like I could be as open, they have those insecurities as well. And so being able to help them break down those insecurities and those walls, huge and goes a long way. I mean, there's individuals that I never thought would be as open as they are today. And I'm impressed at times by, again, what something simple like a thank you for your support, or I really appreciated that, or I've learned so much from you in this aspect. Little, again, genuine, for the record,
Yes.
genuine feedback and compliments go a long way for those individuals. It makes them want to now seek you out to say, great, what else can I help you with? What else can I teach you? And so that's one approach to consider if you're
Yeah.
struggling with a difficult leader.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because not everyone is going to like. It's just different personality types, right? So that you're not always
Yes.
thinking, "Oh, I just recorded a video about this." It's forget about the people. We're at work, so we need to be at work, right? Um,
Yes.
and that only goes so far. People want to work for other humans. I mean,
Yes.
well, Junid, if you had to, let's just say you were going to go mentor a middle manager in your organization or in hospitality in general, you're going to go have coffee with them. What would you say they need to start doing tomorrow to be
Well,
successful?
yes. So I would say, so the same mentor that proofread my emails, I remember one of the things he did was he started inviting me to certain meetings. And in those meetings, I was surrounded by executives and I felt really intimidated. I wouldn't speak other than good morning, good afternoon.
Mhm.
And I'd leave the meeting and I'd go running to his office and say, okay, I've got some ideas. And I would just spit out all these ideas. And I remember by the second time I did that, he said, you're filled with great ideas. I need you to share them in that environment. People need to know what you have to say. And I remember just thinking like, whoa, that is asking for a lot at the moment. And so it's really that it's trusting your gut, be bold, right? Be diplomatic, read the room, learn all those pieces because that's still important. But certainly don't shy away from those, I would say, intimidating, challenging pieces. And continue to be open, right? Continue to be open. I have found in my career that there's so many leaders out there who are more than willing to share their knowledge, right? Others not so much. That's okay. That's okay, right? You move on. You
Go
say,
to the
great,
next
great
one.
knowing you. You still stay in good terms. But there are plenty of other leaders out there who are just interested in sharing their knowledge, especially if somebody wants to learn the information. It's going to make their jobs easier. It's going to create cohesiveness in an operations, right? So definitely be bold. I mean, at the end of the day, to your point, Jen, all of us, we're kind of just winging it out here, right? But if you care enough, you're going to adjust, the right way or the right direction, or try out something new in order to get to the finish line and really, again, problem solve. But we're winging it. We're trying new things. We're thinking through, well, what happened in this scenario? Well, how can I apply this? And sometimes I'll tell leaders will tell me, what are you interested in doing? What do you want to do? And then once I know what they want to do, then I say, okay, well, how about if we go about it this way? How about if we consider this? And have you thought through these potential outcomes? And just talking through it, we formulate a solution that honestly, when you probably asked me the question, I did not have the answer to that.
Mhm.
So a lot of it in this industry is collaboration. So don't be shy, go out there and connect and get to know people. And most importantly, just have fun. Have fun, but be patient. right? Uh, Growing, as I mentioned, going back to that opportunity, I thought I was doing all the right things. I, was seeking education, certifications. I continued to learn more. I attended every webinar I needed to. And so I filled my brain with much knowledge. That doesn't mean that I was ready for that opportunity. So be patient. Be patient. Take your time. Have fun. Enjoy the journey, because you're going to look back and you're just going to be in awe of what you've accomplished, and even, I would say, the other individuals who you have influenced along the way and who have influenced you is what it boils down to.
Yeah. You can touch a lot of lives as a leader and as a coworker as well, even if you're not a
Yes.
leader, right? We interact with so many people at work, and you make a difference. Again, the emotional contagion, the positivity versus the negativity, it all makes a difference.
Yes.
So, Junid, where can people connect with you if they wanted to reach out? Is LinkedIn the best place?
I would say for now it is. Perhaps there's some opportunities in the future, but currently at the moment, LinkedIn. I am also a part of the local SHRM chapter, and you'll find me typically at UNLV as well, trying to just continue to support our next generations of leadership and hospitality. I would say industry overall. But yes, LinkedIn is one of the best ways. If you message me, I'm always available and happy to share any thoughts or insight I can provide. With the little experience I have here, I'm more than happy to just collaborate with anyone at this point in time and really just share. Because really that's how we all grow. We continue to grow by just sharing our experiences and getting to know other new faces.
Yes, and I'll link that up in the show notes. And also for non-Vegas people, that's University of Las Vegas, just so they know,
Yeah.
UNLV. We say it all the
Thank
time.
you. Yes.
All right, Gina, before we close out, is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with? Anything I didn't ask you, or you just want to say?
No, I think we've all covered it. Have fun, enjoy the journey, and go out there and be your best self. That's all you can do.
Love it. Well, Junid, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.